All right, welcome back to another episode of CMA Podcast. Today, I am joined by the Burt Locker host, Burt Green. How are you doing, sir?
I am very well, mate. Very well. Lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure, man. I met you through. It's one of those weird stories where we can talk about meeting each other online, which is very risky in today's society.
It is. Yeah.
So those podcast forums on Facebook are complete nonsense, but they did lead me in your direction.
Terrible, yeah. They are terrible for the most part.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan. Like, I joined them and then I quickly saw that it's like people aren't posting on there because they're interested in seeing a podcast. They just want to do listen for listen, which soon gets taken back off of YouTube anyway because they're not mugs. They're not idiots.
Yeah.
They know what's going on. A sub for sub. They quickly take those subs away. Pointless.
Yeah, it's a disaster, I swear. I just got hit with so many private messages going, if you need editing help, pushing of numbers, and just, oh man, they just tormented me. So I got off all of those groups. But before I got off the groups, I sent a message asking for help with an MMA podcast, just a one-on-one. And someone tagged you and you got back to me. I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Now,
I think it was my mate Josh.
Was it your mate?
Josh. Yeah, it was. It was a friend of mine. Yeah, that did tag me in it because, most people know that I do my MMA podcast.
Right.
Yeah. When I saw it, I was like, yeah, no, I would love to have someone to talk to about, because normally I just talk into the void. If you know the format of my show, I talk into the void, just at whoever is listening. And there's no one to kind of bounce off of. So this should be really fun. I'm really looking forward to it.
There you go, man. Absolutely. So the crazy thing about all of it is I got so much advice from so many different people saying, be very choosy and picky with who you get on your podcast because you got to have chemistry. And I did a deep dive on your Facebook, and you like MMA, you like beer, you like heavy metal. I'm like, this is my guy.
Yeah, no, damn right.
There you go.
I mean, yeah, like I said, I've watched a few episodes of your podcast. Like I said, you seem like you're right on my level, mate. Honestly, this is gonna be fun.
There you go, man. My friends are gonna be taking the piss out of me like it's nobody's business, saying, "Oh man, you got a new boyfriend."
Yeah, just jealous. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
they wish they could land me. Know what I mean?
It's your beard. It must be your beard. So why start a podcast? Why did you do it?
Because I wanted to. Basically, it's something that I wanted to do because I started doing stand-up comedy first. Basically, I will do whatever Joe Rogan tells me to do. He is my Oprah.
Wow.
But yeah.
There you go.
So I mean, it's just something like because the stand-up, I started doing that because I've always had like a weird ability to remember Simpsons quotes, like word for word, and I just thought, is there possibly a use for this useless thing that I can do? And I thought, well, maybe if I write my own things and see if I can remember them on stage and make people laugh, and for the most part it goes pretty well. So I started doing that, and I thought, well, what other things do I want to do? And I was like, and especially in lockdown, because it was in lockdown I started the Burt Locker, because I was really missing that creative outlook that stand-up provided for me. And I thought, you know what, rather than just wasting my time and being, oh, boo-hoo, I can't do stand-up anymore because no one's allowed out, I'd be like, you know what, there's an opportunity here somewhere. I could probably start doing like an MMA podcast, because at the end of the day, if it one day led to me being able to research and talk about MMA for a living, that would be the ultimate goal. It's a long shot. I realise that. It's a competitive market. But you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. There's a hockey player that said that, I think. Yeah. But I know it from the US office, Mr. Michael Scott. Thank you, Michael.
There you go. Literally the same for me, man. It's just a case of not being able to go to the gym, not being able to talk to the guys about last week, the fights that happened last weekend, fights coming up next weekend, things we took for granted 2 years ago, and things that were stored up in my brain. My wife was just like, hey, you gotta call the guys, you gotta go for a beer, you gotta talk about the fights. I can see it brewing inside of you. So this is exactly why I set it up.
Basically, she's saying, stop talking to me about the fights. I'm sick to death of it.
Yep.
I don't know who Ortega is, all right? Just for the love of God.
Basically, yeah, that's it. And I like to talk about fights. And if I'm sitting there on my own with a microphone in my face and a camera going, and I'm just giving my thoughts about what's happened at the weekend, that's good enough for me. I mean, I would prefer to bounce it back and forth with guys at the gym, but talking to my partner at the gym, talking to my clients, talking to people like yourself. I have a good back and forth with my brother about the fights, things like that. It's just, I missed it so much. And I set it up because I like to talk. I like to talk about it, and I'm educated in it. And I did another deep dive on your YouTube channel, and you're incredibly educated on how you pick your fights and how you talk about what's coming up. And I truly admire that about someone who's got that analytical part of it.
Yeah, I do, because I try and keep it light and silly, because for me, the whole terrible bets thing came about was because, look, you're not getting rich betting on mixed martial arts. The bookies are too smart, man. They're not. The bookies do not miss a beat. If you want to get rich by gambling, then you need a lot of capital, and you need to just bet on the heavy favourites every single time, and that is it. That is the only way you can get rich from gambling. And also, you start doing that, and the bookmakers will just ban you from all their sites anyway. True. So that's it. And so what I look for is value in the bets. A lot of them don't come off because, there's a reason there's value in it. It's because it's not likely to happen. But I look for bets where the odds are longer than they should be. Prime example, Dan Hooker at the weekend. He should not have been 10-1 to get the submission. Not in any universe. It should have been 6-1, 7-1 tops, really, because you look at the likely he's not like a submission kind of artist. However, he does like submissions. I mean, they call him the hangman. As far as I'm aware, this is all conjecture because it was something that I read online. And Lord knows if it's on the internet, it's got to be true, right?
Yeah.
But apparently the nickname, the hangman, came from his propensity to choke people in training. Yeah. And so when you've got somebody whose nickname is derived from the fact that they like to choke people, in training, and he has got a fair few submissions on his record, 10-1 on the submission is quite frankly ridiculous. Like I said, whilst that didn't come off, there was still value in that bet, which is what I kind of look for, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't get to watch the fights live this weekend. I was really looking forward to watching them live. I had a busy weekend. But when I watched the fights, I was truly surprised at how they exceeded expectations. And expectations were even higher than normal. It wasn't like a Conor weekend. There was no superstar fighting, but the Diaz guys, no matter who they fight, they bring that level of anticipation, and they've always done, and
my mate met Nick Diaz in a lift once. Yeah. He's literally, it's the only time we went to Vegas. We went to Vegas for UFC 200, and I wasn't with him at the time, but he was in the lift at 2 a.m, and he realised he was standing next to Nick Diaz. So he got a picture with him and that, and when he went to Philadelphia, he did this silly picture of him standing next to the Rocky statue, just in his boxer shorts, right? And Nick Diaz turned to him, he was like, "Hey man," because he saw it on a screensaver. He was like, "Hey man, you like a kickboxer or whatever?" And my mate was like, "No, I'm just a twat."
Oh, that's fantastic! I'm just a twat. What a brilliant response! I love it. Have you been to UFC 200? What events have you seen live?
I've been to a few. It's not the amount of events, the amount of fighters I've seen. Because obviously, UFC 200 was a list of fighters. So I've seen Cain Velasquez against Travis Brown. I've seen Diego Sanchez fight Joe Lozon. I've seen obviously Amanda Nunes. I made a lot of money on Amanda Nunes that night because she was the underdog. Can you believe that?
Against
Can you believe
Miesha
she
Tate?
Was the underdog against Miesha Tate? Yeah, she was the underdog in Vegas. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
wow.
So I made I was gutted because they don't do parlays. I mean, they call them parlays in America. I call them accumulators. I'm English. It's an accumulator. Do you know what I mean? You accumulate the bet. It's an accumulator. Yeah. So, but I couldn't get onto my betting site because obviously I'm not in the right country. I couldn't be bothered to start another betting site just for America. And actually, I was quite disappointed with the lack of betting options in Vegas, if I'm totally honest. You could bet on just the winner or the loser. You couldn't even pick the method Couldn't do anything.
Wow.
And I was just like, really? So you can just pick the winner and loser. But I only picked one fight wrong that entire weekend. And if that had been on an accumulator, it would have been ridiculous. Because to be honest, the only fight I picked wrong wasn't one that I would normally bet on. I wouldn't have, if that was in my accumulator, I would have picked Daniel Cormier all day. Because I'd literally just put $30 on Anderson Silva because I thought if anyone can get a weird knockout, maybe Anderson Silva can do it. But let's be fair, DC's just gonna crush him.
Yeah.
So my money would have. But the rest of everything else all went my way. I had Eddie Alvarez to dethrone RDA again. He was quite a big underdog. I was like, don't see why, because he's got good hands and RDA is hittable. We've seen it in the past, and obviously Brock Lesnar beating Mark Hunt, for me, it was always going to happen. People said that I was mental. I was like, not being funny, but Mark Hunt, he's not the best at stopping takedowns, and Brock Lesnar is just going to bulldoze him. I don't care if he was on steroids or what. It's all kind of doesn't really matter. Do you know what I mean? It's like I used to love Mark Hunt, but honestly, after that fight, he kind of started to annoy me a bit, because before the fight he said, "Look, I know he's juiced to the gills. It doesn't matter. I'm going to knock him out." And then after the fight, he's whining and complaining that he was on steroids. It's like, well, hang on a second. You said that you knew he was on steroids and that you were going to knock him out. So you're not actually upset that he was on steroids. You're upset at the result of the fight. That's what you're upset with, and which is fair enough. But also, it's kind of like, everyone kind of knew. And I'm not saying it's okay, do you know what I mean? But it's far from it. But let's be fair, Brock's not the only one, do you know what I mean? And Brock's not the only one that got a raw deal as a result of people taking PEDs. Do you know what I mean? People never talk about the Alistair Overeem fight. Alistair Overeem massacred Brock Lesnar, and he kicked him right in the stomach where he'd had his surgery. And Alistair Overeem tested 14-1 epitestosterone to testosterone levels. Right, a fail, an Olympic fail is 4-1. He was 14-1. How was that not overturned to a no contest? That is ridiculous.
It's so corrupt, man. It's so corrupt.
Oh, yeah.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I'll parlay that with what they did with John Jones when he had the picogram situation. And the week before the fight, they moved from Vegas to California. It's so corrupt. Yeah. It's insane.
But hey, look, it's money talks. Money talks, bullshit walks. That's it. At the end of the day, they are running a business. And like I said, I know how dare they try and make a profit?
I know, right? You know what I mean? At all costs. Well, that's a huge discussion in itself, because they've contractually put these fighters as independent contractors. None of them are employees.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's super, super corrupt, because they're treating them as employees but have them in this contract as independent contractors. It's so corrupt, man. It is weird. It's disgusting.
But they are the biggest show in town. They are the biggest show in town. And I would also say that for the most part, unpopular opinion, the UFC actually look after most of their fighters pretty well. Better than people would like to believe, because it's a very popular thing to just be like, oh, Dana White's the devil, he's pocketing money at the expense of all these fighters, they're all being exploited. Look, at the end of the day, no one's putting a gun to these guys' heads and forcing them to fight. It's not that's not what is happening. And the thing is it's a risky business. Everyone knows it's a huge risk when you're going in there, right? The risk is you get brain damage, you get seriously hurt for not enough money to retire on. But if you're good enough, the reward is that you get to retire at the age of 35 and never have to actually go back and work a regular job in your life. And it's the risk reward thing. It's nobody said it wasn't a risk, and it's just, are they prepared to take that risk? And because it's with the whole fighter pay thing. I never weigh in one way or the other, because honestly, I don't know if the fighters are underpaid or overpaid. And neither does anybody else in all these forums, these chat rooms. They're all talking out their ass, right? Because they don't, in order to know whether they're paid like too much, too little, or exactly right. You would have to really have detailed knowledge of like the UFC's accounts, what they bring in, what they spend on growth, on kind of on putting on the events. Are the cameramen, all the people, are they independent contractors? Do they go through an agency? All of this stuff is relevant, and it all goes into that discussion. But nobody wants to look at that part of it because they just want to say like blanket, the fighters are underpaid. They might be. I'm not saying they're not. Do you know what I mean? But I'm also not saying that they are because I don't know, and I feel like we need more information. Really, it's
it's a huge topic for discussion. I like what's happening now with Sugar Sean O'Malley. He's basically on his initial contract with 2 fights to go. They like to renegotiate with 2 fights to go, and they're trying to get him to fight the big guys because he's a big name. But he's basically turning around. He's
digging his heels in.
Yeah, he's saying, I don't want to fight these big guys. I want to get paid. You're going to pay me the same if I fight a nobody. So he's doing the right thing. Absolutely, he's doing the right thing.
I respect that. It's ballsy. It's ballsy because, again, the problem is like the thing that makes the UFC very good and very successful is the same thing that can be a bit of a double-edged sword for the fighters because they are basically the only show in town. Because I mean. Because people say, "Oh no, you got Bellator there as well," but I mean, let's be real. Like, you know, Bellator are about 10 years behind the UFC. They just are. Like, I don't know. Like, Joey, I know people that casually watch the UFC. I don't know anyone that casually watches Bellator. Do you know what I mean? If you are watching Bellator, I would say 99% you watch the UFC and also watch Bellator. There's probably 1%. But it is only 1% that watch Bellator and don't watch the UFC. See what I mean?
Very true.
And that's the difference in the size of the organisations. And I love it when people throw out that, but Bellator pay out 50% of their revenue to the fighters. It's like, yeah, it's still less than you'll get paid in the UFC. They pay a handful of fighters at the expense of the other fighters down the card, which quite frankly I think is just as bad as kind of any other pay scale that the UFC has to offer, because when you're giving all the money to those guys at the top, like there are 12 to 16 fighters on an average Bellator event that make less than $2,000. So then when people say, "Oh, well, you make more in Bellator," no, you don't. You compare that with an entry-level prelim fighter in the UFC where the minimum is 12 and 12, I think. So I think it might be 10 and 10.
That's
but you have to go back a long way. Yeah. So this is, again, it's another one of those popular things that people like to say, Bellator pay out 50% of their revenue. It's like, yeah, but 50% of 100 million is way less than 20% of 750 million. Do you know what I mean? So they still get paid less. Do you know what I mean? And again, it's the way Bellator do it. I'm not a huge fan of that because, again, look at Affliction. They overpaid their fighters. In boxing, they overpay their fighters. Deontay Wilder versus Fury 2 didn't make any money. That's why they didn't want to do it again. Because nobody outside of the 2 main eventers and the people that just got paid for turning up made money that night. Everyone lost money, which is mental. Do you know what I mean? It's when you see those kind of paydays. It's like the last Triller event. Like when you're running those numbers, there's no way they made money on that. They keep calling out Dana White saying, "Oh, you need to pay your fighters." It's like, no, guys, actually, you need to pay your fighters slightly less because you're losing money hand over fist. Yeah. And that is not how that's not how you run a business. But yeah,
it's true. It's such a weird topic for discussion because, like, not maybe people like you and me, but the regular casual fan sees a headline and just runs with it.
Yeah.
And they're not educated with what goes on behind the scenes, as you say, how much it takes for advertising. But I do know, because a lot of fighters are complaining, I like what's happening based solely on what's going to happen with Sugar Sean over the next 2 fights. That's going to tell a lot. That'll tell a lot.
You have to shoot your shot. That's the thing. Yeah. It's like, at the end of the day, like, you have to, because it's down, because again, the other people that never get thrown under the bus, I would quite like to see more of it. It's like, because there's a whole Dan Hardy thing, right? Yeah. Did you see that recently where they said, he made 25 grand for his fight with GSP, and it's just like, and I said, yeah, that is disgusting. And people were like, yeah, Dana White really took advantage. I was like, no. Who was Dan Hardy's manager? Who negotiated that deal?
Yeah. Who
negotiated that? Dan Hardy was paying somebody to negotiate his contracts for him. Who was it? Who dropped the ball on that one?
And they signed. Yeah. So,
they signed for it and they agreed to fight for that price. The UFC did nothing wrong there. Like they said, will you fight for 25,000? They said yes, and then they paid him that, and probably a bit more as well. If we're being honest, there's a lot of bonuses that go on.
Yeah,
I don't know if he deserved a bonus for that fight, but
he got out of the armbar.
Yeah, he did. God, that armbar. I remember watching that. I was just like, because I still am. I'm a huge fan of Dan Hardy. Do you watch his podcast? Like he does one called The War Room.
I've seen a few episodes, but he doesn't. I wish he would let loose more, and it would get me more interested. He still stays kind of very in between the lines. He doesn't like to out people. I like to watch people who are just free and talk and aren't afraid to get in trouble.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. He started doing a new one where he's got his mate on, where he is a little bit more.
Oh, right.
Like he's far more. I forget what it's called, but it's on his Full Reptile YouTube page. But I give that a look because they basically sit and go through the whole card and just pick like every single fight.
Right.
And it's quite funny because sometimes. Like he will say things that I'm just like, yeah, Dan Hardy wouldn't be saying that on BT Sport. Do you know what I mean?
I love it. I saw Dan Hardy fight in London. I was at 120 and he got knocked out by Carlos Condit.
Mike Swick. Oh no, so I was at Condit one.
Condit one, yeah.
Was Mike Swick after that or before it?
Which one?
Mike Swick.
Ooh, that might have been after.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess
because the Condit one. The Condit one, they both threw the same punch, but Condit's landed just a fraction earlier. And it was just like, and that was it. I was like,
I'm a huge Condit fan, but I was surrounded by a load of British guys that wanted Dan Hardy to win. And old Paddy here with the Irish accent became very fucking London very quickly after that one. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But
it's...
Do you train? Like, do you have any fight experience or anything like that?
I mean, bits and pieces. I'm trying to get back into my jiu-jitsu. I do Japanese jiu-jitsu. I've been doing that a long time, but that's more of like a self-defense thing. It's because the thing is like, for me, like, because I'm never going to be a professional fighter. I did do some training kind of, like a few years ago. And that's when I realized, that it was when I trained with some of the pros that I was like, okay, there are real levels to this. And I am not getting anywhere near that level. So I need to quash that dream right quick. And I also need to start shutting my mouth more because, good God, what some of those guys can do to you with like zero effort whatsoever, it's humbling. Yeah. And I think that's important. That's an important lesson to learn. And I learned it. And it's just like, so I started doing Japanese jiu-jitsu just because it's good exercise. It helps you kind of like keep fit because it incorporates all like the hip throws and things like that you would never use really in a real environment. There are a couple here and there that are good, but what it really teaches you how to do better than anything is fall. Like it teaches you how to fall, all your break falls, super important, and blocking. Yeah. So if you know how to block and you know how to break fall, then you're a step ahead of like most like Johnny drunk guy on the street. Like if you can stop somebody from hitting you, that's always the first step. I find, and like, so what am I, like an orange belt in that? I forget. It's been a while since I've done it. No, I don't. It's just it's like, I've been doing it a bit, and I enjoy that. And because what we train for there is, I feel like that's more useful to me at this point because it's like, look, because I don't want to getting into altercations like outside in the street. It's a mugs game. It's stupid. Just try and avoid it at all costs because the best case scenario, you win, you have a broken hand, and then the police come along, and all of a sudden you're the guy standing on top of the other guy, and that means that you're the one that's going to the cells that night. Yeah. And there really isn't much good that can come of it. And so, mostly try and avoid it. But if you really have to, then I find that Japanese jiu-jitsu is kind of more useful than, I don't know, so some of like the more kind of like sport-based like martial arts. Apart from like boxing, if you know how to punch someone's head off, you know how to punch someone's head off, and that's bloody useful. Do you know what I mean? And like the kickboxing as well. Yeah. But it's just like, it's just like I do a bit of Brazilian jiu-jitsu as well, but I'm a white belt in that, and I've just started getting back into it, to be fair. But my ankles are all over the place because I did one in rugby. Like back when I was at school, and the other one I decided to go skiing, which is for idiots, by the way. Any skiers out there, you're an idiot. Like Joe, like I spoke to a lot of skiers when I was out there, and literally they were all in like their early 40s, like early 50s, and the one thing they all had in common, all of them had torn ACLs at some point, torn MCLs. Literally none of them had. There wasn't one that hadn't had surgery at one point. It's
Right.
like if you're a skier, it's a matter of when. It's not if. Like, your body is going to fail you, and mine did on the first day.
Amazing. I did a bit of skiing out here my first couple of years in Switzerland, and I did the French fries pizza slice. I overcompensated the pizza slice, and I felt a torque on my knee that I'd never felt before in my life. And you hear these stories about injuries. I've never had a serious injury, but I thought, you know what? I've been in the cage, I've been in the boxing ring, I've been on jiu-jitsu mats, I've been in street fights, and if I on this kids slide down a fucking snow is going to get me in the hospital now, I swear to God I'm going to kill somebody, because it was just
It's a hell of a way to go.
It's so humiliating. There's these fucking 6-year-old kids just whizzing past me, and I can't get up because my knee is just in so much pain. But it was a small torque, so I didn't have any major problems. But
yeah, you touched on it. What's your background anyway? I mean, because I know that you're at City Martial Arts, aren't you?
Correct.
That's, and are you like just tell me more about your background. How did you get into it?
So what happened was, I was a UFC fan. I love watching fights on TV. And UFC 93 came to Dublin, and I just said, fuck it, let's go. So we got tickets, myself and my girlfriend, now wife, went to the fights. Around that time, I was working security in a nightclub, and the owner of the gym, I went blank. The
owner of the club,
the head doorman of the security, got a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. So he opened a school. And I started jiu-jitsu. He's like, you should come and do jiu-jitsu. It will really help you out. So I started in jiu-jitsu. He then got another job in an MMA gym. And I went. And I just did jiu-jitsu in the MMA gym until I saw people boxing. And I just wanted to go ahead and try boxing. But not like full on. I just didn't like getting punched in the face. I never did a boxing class.
I'll freely admit it. I hate getting punched in the face. It's the worst.
But then I loved it, because I didn't do a boxing class. I just started sparring with whoever wanted to spar. And that's how I learned. So in the space of like 3-4 months, I've got 2 years of relative experience on the guys who are doing boxing classes, because I'm just sparring all the time. My sparring got pretty good. I incorporated kicks into takedowns. I used to pull guard. My coaches used to kill me because pulling guard is for pussies, apparently. I don't know. I'm not. Was that a controversial statement? I don't know.
No, it depends. I mean, but that was one of my favourite things that Chael Sonnen always said, though, because I'm a huge Chael Sonnen fan.
Yeah, me too.
And I just love it. He's just like, I don't learn to fight off my back. I don't put another man between my legs. I'm a Republican.
Genius. I love that guy.
Funny.
So I started to fight, and I started to really, truly enjoy it. And I started to really like training too. Now, around 2012, I was like fighting once every 2 months, whether it was a jiu-jitsu competition, a boxing fight, or an MMA fight, or MMA leagues in Ireland as well. They do the MMA leagues where it's like a jiu-jitsu tournament, but with MMA rules. It's like a mat.
Oh, cool.
And 2 fights per day. You got to make a weight class. No strikes to the head, but you can knee to the body, and anything else goes. So around 2012, I stopped completely, and I moved to Switzerland. When I moved to Switzerland, I wanted to continue training. So everywhere I lived, I just found a gym close by. And I had 2 more boxing fights in Ireland. So I flew back twice to Ireland to fight. And, you know, around when I was 34, 35, that's when I had my last fight. And I was a coach. I got an opportunity to coach at City Martial Arts, where I own now. But I wasn't an owner back then. I wasn't a partner or nothing. Friends of mine just wanted me to coach. So I started coaching, and I fell in love with coaching, because I just truly enjoyed passing on what I learned to others. And there was a little break after that because kids came along. And then when I moved to the city where I worked and where the gym is, there was an opportunity to buy in and be part of the ownership. So for the last, I want to say 7-8 months, I've been 50% owner of City Martial Arts with my partner Evo.
Sweet.
It's awesome because we are fighting against the lockdowns. We are participating in training outside.
Yeah, good Lord.
The gym is alive. The gym is financed. The gym is strong. Numbers have dropped off. People don't like training outside. I don't know why.
No, I don't know. It's just, yeah, no. There's something I don't know what it is, but I prefer training inside as well. If I'm honest, I don't know why.
I don't know. I can understand it from someone who, like, I know quite a few people have said no because they don't want people looking at them, and that's completely understandable. But we do it in a very secluded place. It's covered, sheltered from the rain. Not ideal circumstances for the cold winters of Switzerland. And we're trying to look for a new space, to get us inside. If not a gym, a temporary rented space for the winter. But that's basically my journey. I went from a UFC fan to a fighter to a coach to an owner overnight.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
Yeah, same, man. I like the sport itself. I couldn't imagine not watching it. It's like I said, it's because I do like exercise wise. I do because whilst I don't, I've done bits and pieces of combat training, like literally bits and pieces, not a lot. But I mean, really, what I love doing, I do love staying in shape. So like running, like I run 5 kilometers a day. Just every day, but I mean, although that's probably why my ankle has failed me again, which is not. Problem is because I dislocated it real badly on that ski slope and ripped a few ligaments that are kind of now weakened now. It pops out every once in a while, and it's like, I have to pop that back in. It's just like, this is good
for real.
Yeah. So I like to stay active, and I like watching fights. For me, there's nothing better than American football.
You mentioned the contrast between people who watch UFC to Bellator, and you mentioned the percentages and all that. At the end of the day, as
I don't know if those percentages are accurate.
Probably very accurate.
I
got an ex-training partner in Bellator right now, and he's killing the game. Will Fleury, absolute legend, man.
I've actually heard that name.
Yeah.
Well, Will Fleury, yeah.
Yeah, check that guy out, man. Absolute killer. I always make the joke about him, man. He's one of the nicest guys I've ever had the pleasure of training with. He will hit you and he will apologize immediately after. It's fucking brilliant. And I had a comment on one of his victory posts a couple of years ago, and I think it got 50% of the likes than the actual post got. Will Fleury apologizing his way to victory once more. He's a fucking legend. I love him.
So that reminds me of what's his name? Uriah Hall. Uriah Hall's very much like that, isn't he? That's one thing that I've always kind of like, because Uriah Hall, like the potential for him to be like the sky's the limit, like potential, but he always had trouble when he was hurting people. Like when he did that spinning kick on that Adam, I can't remember what his name was, but good Lord, that's to this day, is one of the most disgusting knockouts I've ever seen ever. Because it was more that like there was no crowd, so all you could hear was him like just drawing his breath in, like he was on the floor,
that
just
noise.
God. And I did feel bad for Uriah Hall because he was like looking at him, so I'm so sorry, Adam. I'm so sorry. It's like, oh, dude, you kind of got to be a bit more of a savage than that, I think. I don't know. You got to find whatever works for you, but it's just because for me, that's what I like about it. There's so many different characters, like from Chael Sonnen to kind of like your GSPs, just like because it would be boring if every fighter was like GSP. Like a lot of people, oh no, but it's all about respect. It's like, no, bullshit. It's entertainment. It's entertainment first. It's entertainment before it's a sport, and people don't like that, but it is true. Do you know what I mean? If it wasn't, people wouldn't watch it and there'd be no money in it. Do you know what I mean? If it was just about the sport and about the respect, Taekwondo would be the #1 sport on the planet. But it's not, is it?
True.
So there is something, and what the UFC did better than anything else was get you emotionally invested. Louis J. Gomez, you ever watch like Michael Bisping's podcast? He's got his co-host Louis J. Gomez. Believe You Me, yeah. His Louis J. Gomez, he's a comedian. I really like him. He's brilliant. He's on like Legion of Skanks and stuff like that. But anyway, he used to be a salesman. And he always says this. He's like, look, you need to get your sales 101 is you must get your clients emotionally invested in the product, and they will buy the product. That is exactly what the UFC did with The Ultimate Fighter. They made you care about the individuals. And it's what they do still with the embedded series, with all the vlogs, with the behind the scenes. Just like literally, they look at fighters in detail, and people get emotionally attached to those fighters, and that is what sells pay-per-views, and that is what's grown the sport from where it was to what it is now. Like 100%, it's because people care about certain fighters and and how they're going to get on, and that's how you sell pay-per-views. And honestly, it was genius. It's where boxing has fallen down largely in the last kind of like few years. Is people like, you don't know anything about any of the fighters. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you get a couple of characters that shine through. Like Tyson Fury is one of them, because you can't keep a lid on that bloke. You know what I mean? It's just he is just who he is. And I honestly think that, like, I don't know. I'm not as knowledgeable about boxing, but when I look at how Tyson Fury moves, I struggle to see any other heavyweight boxer, past or present, like touching that guy when he's like at his best. Get any boxer at their best, like in the heavyweight division, and put him against Tyson Fury. I can't see who would beat him.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously it's all conjecture and and stuff, but it's just because someone said Mike Tyson, I was like, but Mike Tyson, he would have to get to him.
Yeah.
Like, the heavyweights have come a long way from like the 80s, where like your average heavyweight was about 200 pounds, 6'2" maybe. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And now it's like your average heavyweight is 6'4", and closer to 240. I mean, like Tyson Fury is 6'9". That's crazy. Do you know what I mean? He's a big dude. I don't think people appreciate how much larger these athletes have kind of gotten, like in the last kind of 40 years, because it is 40 years now, isn't it?
That's true. But you touched on a very interesting point there, because what it is like, I've trained with some of the nicest people on the planet that are now fighters, that if they, like, how do I put this without insulting anybody? If they try and if they try and trash talk, it just comes across as inorganic and forced. And like, I don't like Conor McGregor. I don't like anything he stands for, but he does it in this innocent Irish, way that just translates as comedy. Anything he says turns to gold, and that's what gets people emotionally invested. And there's no one on the planet that can do it like him. And with people I know, from who I train with now to people I used to train with, these are nice people. These are not trash talkers that are going to talk about your family or your religion or anything like that. And that's the crazy thing about the entertainment era that we're in. It's just so, people are trying, like Ortega and Volkanovski at the weekend. That was so forced, but we got emotionally invested at the end when it started. It was. I mean, the thing, what I found weird was like Volkanovski stopped being himself for a minute, because the thing that sells me on Volkanovski, I'm a huge Volkanovski fan, by the way. I just think, for me, like, Volkanovski's fun without being a complete knobhead. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's like, where Conor McGregor, like, he's fun and he's good to listen to, but I honestly, Conor McGregor, I would not want to go for a beer with him, because I think if he is the way that he acts, then he's a knobhead. I wouldn't really have any time for him. Honestly, I just wouldn't. Volkanovski, I'd go for a beer with him all day. I think that he would be a great guy to sit and have a bear with. Do you not think? Yeah,
I agree. I feel like that's the difference kind of between them, because I mean, I don't, because Conor McGregor, he changed the game. Like, no doubt about it. You got to respect what he's done, but also that, you've got to kind of look at what he's done lately as well, and it's just like, oh God, could you? I mean, really, he should have stopped after Floyd. He should have just stopped, and he's done what he's done, and that's it.
Yeah.
But now it becomes less and less funny every time I see it. I used to laugh at Conor McGregor's press conferences.
Yeah.
Now I cringe because
horrible.
I'm just like, you're coming across as just an awful human being. Like, and he's talking trash on Volkanovski at the weekend. It's like, dude, honestly, current form, Volkanovski would do you. Like,
yeah,
he would rip you to pieces. Like, current form. I'm not saying that, like, McGregor back when he was hungry and back when he was, like, really, really on form. When he was sharp, he was sharp. You can't take that away from him. That left hand was a piston, and he could put your lights out. And so I'm not saying that he couldn't have beaten Volkanovski at one point.
Yeah.
But if they fought tomorrow, Volkanovski, I mean, he's got a broken leg, so I think Volkanovski would definitely win. But,
even if he had the stick, bro. If he had the stick with him. I burnt my Irish passport after the Floyd fight. I was like, I don't want to be associated with that island anymore. I am now Swiss.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah. The Swiss probably have better whiskey than the proper 12 as well.
Oh, dude, if that ever comes near my apartment, I will burn.
It's terrible.
Oh, my God.
It's terrible. So bad.
I haven't touched it. I will never touch it. It will never cross my lips.
No, I have, because I was like, look, I'm intrigued. I'm a whiskey drinker. I enjoy whiskey, right? Honestly, like, Joe, I don't want to offend Irish people, but I don't rate Irish whiskey at all.
Okay.
Like, I mean, Redbreast 21 is all right, but I mean, but it's well expensive. You can get far better bourbons at a far better price point. I do like bourbons. Like, I'm half Scottish, so I do drink scotches as well. But for me, like, I tried proper 12, and I wanted to like it because I was like, it's an MMA whiskey, and I want to like it. And I just tasted it, and I was like, this is swill. This is like, it might be the worst whiskey I've ever tasted.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, he wanted to try and market it as cheap shit to rival Jameson's, and congratulations. Because, because
I
he
love it.
did
Well, bro, I'm a huge Lemmy from Motorhead fan.
Love that.
So
love Motorhead.
Jack Daniels and Coke all the way for this guy right here. Never a proper 12.
Do you know what Lemmy would tell you? If you, because this was a story that I read for like someone that roadied for him, right? And he apparently they finished their set, went backstage, and he started passing out bottles of Jack Daniels, and he passed like a bottle to this like guy that sat there, who's like, yeah, we got any Coke? And then he just turns to him and just goes, we don't do cocktails. And then just walked off.
I love it. Oh man, I could talk for
an
hour about Lemmy. I was on Motorhead's tour bus.
Oh really?
Yeah, nothing happened. My clothes remained on, and nothing that I can still talk about this on the podcast. A friend of mine here in Switzerland owns a nightclub, and that nightclub hosted Phil Campbell and the Bastard Sons. And they came to Switzerland, and it was Motorhead's tour bus. They used all Motorhead's equipment. The Motorhead sound guy, he had the unique one-time Motorhead mat. I was just like, I was a kid at Christmas. The guy who owned the bar asked me to help out with the loading of I was basically a roadie, essentially. And
awesome.
I got on the tour bus. I sat down. It's still like a Jack and Coke where Lemmy used to say it. And I'm like almost in tears trying to keep it together. Phil Campbell was there. I'm like, hey, huge fan. Just thought you should know. All that kind of stuff. I really fanboyed out, man. It was so cool. But I did not start drinking Jack and Coke until maybe 4 or 5 years ago. What happened was, Airborne?
Yeah. I think so. I'd know their songs if I heard them.
Yeah, they're like Australian. They're huge Lemmy fans. They were friends with Lemmy. They wrote a song. It's all for rock and roll. Basically a tribute to Lemmy. And they brought out like a flight case, and they had it like branded Lemmy Bar, and they were like pouring Jack and Coke into like a load of these things. I was front row. I always go front row to concerts. R.I.P. concerts, by the way. So they were passing out Jack and Cokes, and I'm like, fuck, I'll try it. And I'm like, this is delicious. I need a Jack and Coke. And I just drink beer at concerts. And ever since then, it's like, when I put the kids to bed, I put on Motorhead. I listen to some, I turn on Motorhead. I like have a Jack and Coke and just like wind down the night. And it's just like, I remember that so clearly, even though I was pretty well toasty at that time. But
this is a life hack. This is a life hack for you. Just remembered, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is what my mate, I'm back when concerts were a thing. Me and my mate, we found, because what I really hated doing was just constantly, beer spilling everywhere. I'm trying to drink it, and then you're having to go for a piss every 5 minutes because you're just drinking pints, right? Yeah. It's a nightmare. Life hack: just go to the bar, get 2 shots of Jack Daniels, bang, bang, go back into the mosh pit. And then you just go out every time you fancy another whiskey, just go get yourself 2 shots, bang, bang, you're back in there. You won't need to go for a piss all night. You will feel terrible in the morning. I'm not going to lie to you.
That was my next question. Why would you do that to yourself? Straight Jack. That's intense.
Yeah, man. Because then you're not spilling your drink anywhere. You're getting a nice little even buzz going. I'm not an alcoholic. Well, I'm at least a high functioning alcoholic, but yeah, either way, I always found it better because then you're not queuing to go to the toilet all the time, and you're not spilling your drinks everywhere. And it's just you get yourself a bottle of water at the end, and you're actually golden. Like, just drink water.
Yeah, as long as you don't have to practice any boxing on the way out of the venue, then you're golden, right?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, rock concerts are usually pretty good for not being full of absolute knobheads. It's why I like that music, because most of the time, like the rock crowd, it's pretty good. To be fair,
very true, very true. Never any problems. Never any problems.
I saw Motorhead at Brixton Academy like years ago. What was that like? I think it might have been 2009 or maybe even 2007. It might have been 2007.
Wow.
But yeah, that was awesome. Then Sonosphere. That was 2007 because I saw him again at Sonosphere in 2009, along with Fozzy. Fozzy were amazing.
I saw Fozzy in Switzerland with 35 people. 35 people showed up to the show, man. I got knuckles from Chris.
Yeah, we got for some reason, I don't know why, but me, like, I started because I'm always chanting and stuff like in like these kind of things. They're at the Red Bull stage, so it was the smaller stage. And for some reason, I just started singing like Shawn Michaels' theme tune, and then it caught on, and it turned, and then the whole crowd was singing like "Sexy Boy" at Chris Jericho, and Chris Jericho's standing there like, they know this isn't my theme tune, right? I mean, they know that. They know that, don't they? Oh, come on, man. It's just like, funny.
That is hilarious, man. I saw you've been to Mastodon. I perved your Facebook account like an ex-girlfriend.
Love Mastodon.
I saw Mastodon. They played 2007. They opened for Slayer in my hometown.
Nice.
I heard them before, never really truly paid any attention to them. But when they came out, man, I saw them with my brother. They were killer. They were just so aggressive on stage. They played right through, no breaks. Huge Mastodon fan. My favorite show of all time ever was Motorhead in, I want to say, Greenfields. It was 35,000 people. Motorhead. They played, I think it was second to last on a Saturday night in Interlaken, Greenfields in Switzerland. And I had a fight the next week. So I was drinking water at a Motorhead concert, bro. I let the side down.
The thing is, right, there's a lot of, I like to have a drink when I'm sitting at home and I'm watching TV, or if I'm watching the fights at home, I'll have a couple of drinks. If I'm going out, it's like, so I'm going to go and watch some fights, not this Saturday, next Saturday, because I've got a friend of mine who fights in Cage Warriors in the UK. He's fighting for the flyweight title. So I was like, I'll come down and give that a watch, show my support. But honestly, like, it's just so much easier, like, traffic wise and everything, like, just literally, well, like, just getting home, just like, if I drive to Stanmore and then tube it in, but obviously that means I'm driving, so I'll just drink water, and you know what, I'll spend next to no money. I'll enjoy the fights way more, if I'm honest, because I'll be paying attention and I'll actually be watching them.
You're getting old, bro. You're getting old, man.
Yeah, no, that's it. It's just I start making more sensible decisions, and it's just I don't know. It's it, but I was actually one thing I forgot to say is, like, because you were talking about fangirling out on Lemmy, I did fangirl out quite a lot when I met Robbie Lawler in Vegas. That was pretty, because Robbie Lawler is the reason I started watching mixed martial arts. His was the first fight that I ever watched. Him against Tiki Grohl. Is it Tiki Grohl? Yeah, something like that.
Rampage's coach.
Yes. He's around all over the place. Like he's done quite well for himself as like a manager and a coach, I think.
Yeah.
But that was the first fight I ever watched, and like Robbie Lawler punched like a section of his eyebrow out, like it was just missing. It was gone. Amazing. And I was like, oh okay, yeah, I'll start watching this. I said that too, like because I noticed him. He was sitting like eating like with one of his mates or something like at the bar. I was like, I'm not going to interrupt him whilst he's eating. Not doing that. So I waited until he was finished. And he was sat at the bar, just like having a conversation. I just patiently waited, and he just like looked up. I was like, Robbie, I am so sorry to bother you, but like you're literally the reason I started watching mixed martial arts, man. Like the first fight I ever watched, when you punched Tiki's eyebrow off his face. Remember that? And he was just like, shit, yeah, that was a long time ago. You got a good memory. And I was like, it was right to grab a picture. He's like, yeah, of course, bro, no problem. He was ever so nice, because I never like to interrupt people. I really don't. It's like, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I really want to get a picture with him, and I really want to just have this interaction because he's like a hero of mine. So I'm not going to pass up the opportunity. But god damn it, I feel bad when he's just sitting there talking to his mate, and I'm just like, this fucking idiot wants a
just waiting for that opportunity. I love it.
It's, yeah, but that was good. I don't fangirl out a lot, but that one I was just like, he's kind of my idol.
Yeah, and you got to do it.
He's the current welterweight champion. I'm never going to get this opportunity again.
I love it.
Shook Alistair Overeem's hand at UFC Fight Night 90 as well. That was pretty cool.
Wow.
That was just a nice interaction because basically we went to the Fight Night 90 all dressed in Union Jack suits, like so the suits were like all like Union Jacks. Like Michael Bisping like popped over to us and he was just like, you guys are like dickheads, and they shook our hands and that. He was so funny. It was brilliant. He was like Michael Bisping, because obviously at the time it was such a golden time for mixed martial arts. For me, that was the high watermark. It hasn't quite gotten back there yet, I don't think, for me, because obviously at the time it was the perfect storm. Michael Bisping was the bloody middleweight champion. Do you know what I mean? It's like it just like all like everything was like, you know, John Jones hadn't been suspended again yet. You know, we were looking forward to Daniel Cormier versus Jones too, and it was just like, we were wearing these bloody suits, and I was standing on the balcony bit, and Alistair Overeem just comes walking over, and he's just like, oh man, I love the effort, guys. I love the effort. And I shook his hand, and his hands, god damn it, just ridiculous. He's huge.
He's
like,
huge.
You don't realise how much of a monster that guy is, and then you see him, and it's like, oh no, that would be a problem.
Yeah, I saw him. I didn't meet him, but I saw him at UFC 93. Before he was there, just about to sign with the UFC, and he was with Frank and Lorenzo Fertitta, and we were all kind of down trying to get a picture with Mike Goldberg and Joe Rogan, and he came over and just stood next to Joe Rogan. You know, Joe Rogan's a really small guy. Like Joe Rogan's,
he's probably my height. I'm like what 5. I'm probably 5'6" at a push, at a real push.
But Alistair's tall and ripped, and this was when he was on all the fucking juice,
all the horse meat. Yes,
crazy shit, man. Absolutely insanity. Burt, I think that's good for tonight, man. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, bloody hell, yes. I didn't realise all the time gone by.
Time flies when you're talking about fights. What should my guys tune in to you? Where are you? What are you doing?
Right, I'm on YouTube. It is the Burt Locker. And I usually do a wrap-up show either Tuesdays or Wednesdays. It's usually Wednesdays. It's going to be Wednesday this week, where I basically recap all of my terrible bets from the weekend before, see how they got on, see which ones came off, see which ones didn't. I have a quick look through the news, and I'll find a lot of things to laugh at, because there's a lot to laugh at in the news, especially when John Jones is getting arrested again.
God.
More on that. More on that. And,
that's it.
Yeah. So.
Excellent.
And then I'm also on Patreon. Basically, there's a lot of extra content that I do just for the Patreon channel, which is the Burt Locker on Patreon. And I do the picks for the fights at the weekend, I go quite in depth. I like to try and find value bets where I feel like the odds are longer than they should be. They're not always going to come off, but that's gambling for you. You know what I mean? And so I make my picks. I do a breakdown of the fights, and that comes out on my Patreon on the Friday, because fight picks are always better on the Friday, and on the Saturday that one does get released onto my YouTube channel as well. So if you're a Patreon customer, it's like £1 a month. It's an absolute bargain, and you get to get the fight picks on the Friday evening. So, and plus extra stuff as well. So that's me. Yeah. Excellent.
Well, what I noticed about your content is, like, if I'm on the fence about a fighter, or if I'm uneducated about a fighter, you have this way of bringing it across in such an articulate manner that it just sways me to either fighter. So it's like, doing a podcast, you're not just speaking out into the complete void. If you've got good content, which you do, I see how much effort you put into upskilling and educating yourself on a specific fighter or a specific fight style. So that's why I like watching your show.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man. Like I said, I love doing it. I really do. It's again, researching fights and fighters. It's just something that I do it anyway. Do you know what I mean? Because I want to win some money sometimes.
There you go, man. It matters more when there's money on it, I guess, right?
It does, yeah. But always gamble within your means, guys. Gambling, honestly, it's for idiots. It's why I keep my odds, I keep my stakes low, and my bets terrible. That's how I do it.
I love it. Awesome. Well, Burt, thank you very much for joining me here, guys. If you have any appreciation for me as a podcaster, hit subscribe, hit like, hit me with some feedback, hit me with the dislike. I don't give a fuck. Send me a private message.
Hit the comments, guys. Honestly, this guy, he has some fantastic content. Just interviews with some brilliant fighters, and they're really well worth a watch. And also, just comment. Even if you want to call us a dickhead, just do it. Helps with the algorithms. I would welcome it.
Dude, I get that here for free. I get that here for free.
Exactly.
So, you know what I mean? Awesome. Guys, thank you very much for listening. Appreciate your time, Burt. Rock and roll, brother.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Take care, bro.